And State Board of Election will come to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairwoman Johnson.
Present.
Vice Chairman Peace-Malone. Member Bettenker.
Here.
Member Carter. Member Jack Boney.
Present.
Member Naderis. Member Scholes.
Present.
Executive Director Miguel Nunez.
Here.
Legal Counsel Ray McCarthy.
Present.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The first agenda item is the board may discuss and vote to approve the polling places for the primary to be held on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Director?
Good afternoon, members of the board. The staff has worked closely with our local board of canvassers on the selection of 345 polling locations to be used on Election Day for the statewide primary to be held on September 10th, 2024. That is a reduction due to combination. Our normal allotment of polling places on a general election day is 414. Beginning in May, the staff notified the Board of Canvassers for the criteria to begin selecting the polling locations for the primary. This included, under Rhode Island General Law 1711-1, taking into consideration accessibility, proximity to dense concentration of voters, public transportation, and equitable distribution across the city or town. Because this is a primary, 17-11-1 does allow the local boards to combine polling locations with the approval of this board. The law allows local boards to seek combination of polling places beyond the normal 3,500 voter cap based on the fact that turnout is historically low in primaries, and particularly statewide primaries that are held during a presidential election year when no general or state general officers are on the ballot. Many local boards are seeking to combine due to the fact that turnout is expected to be low because many cities and towns have no local contests, and their ballots will only contain a U.S. Senate race, a congressional race, and an unopposed General Assembly race. In fact, only 8 of 38 Senate races are contested, and 11 of 75 House seats are contested this year. Combining polling locations allows local boards to use fewer municipal resources and operate more efficiently on election day. As you can see in the chart displayed on the screen above, turnout for the September primaries held in presidential election years since 2012 has run as low as 9% in 2016 to as high as 15% in 2020. The board has opened as few as 303 polling locations in 2020 and up to 453 locations in 2016, when the state had more polling places overall at that time. As you know, several factors in the operation of the polls has changed. In recent years, voters have shifted towards casting their mail ballot during that 20-day early voting period and using mail ballots. This leaves fewer voters to actually show up to vote on election day. In 2016, as you know, the Board of Elections implemented electronic poll books, which makes processing voters at each location much more efficient. And additionally, in 2018, the Board of Elections began allocating new ballot tabulators to precincts with the highest number of eligible votes and based on the number of ballot pages. For the primary, every single precinct in the state will have a single page ballot. The board has also increased the number of voting booths and began allocating more booths to larger locations that could accommodate them. For example, even projecting a 30% turnout with 65% of voters turning out at the polls on September 10th, rather than voting early or by mail, the location with the highest number of voters assigned would be the Swift Community Center in East Greenwich, and would only be expected to process a maximum of 1,796 voters on September 10th, which is well under the current 3,500 maximum voters allowed by state law in general elections. Any location which could potentially process over 1,400 voters will receive at least 2 DS200s, and we will add additional poll pads to efficiently process these voters. Local boards will also assign additional poll workers to higher volume locations, and all other locations on the list before you are anticipated to process fewer voters than that East Greenwich location. And all locations have been reviewed by the local board of canvassers and our staff to ensure facilities can properly handle the anticipated flow of voters, both inside and outside these facilities. Also, local boards will post a notice at any default polling location which is not opening on September 10th. And this notice will direct voters to their proper location on that day. Additionally, under Rhode Island General Law 1711 1.1, local boards must advertise these combination in the newspaper at least 7 days prior to September 10th. Based on the information provided to you today, the staff agrees with these selections of polling places for the September 10th, 2024 statewide primary and requests that you approve them. If you have any questions, feel free to, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Miguel. Any questions for Miguel? Yes, Commissioner.
Is on the sheet that you gave us, Miguel, is there a list of the estimated voters based on that calculation you just mentioned?
We have not, we don't generally publicly talk about an estimate of turnout, but we anticipate it will be lower than, of course, than the general election turnout. For the presidential preference primary, we did have 180 polling locations open statewide compared to this 345.
And what was the turnout?
To my recollection, it was under 5%, I believe, so.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just move to approve the polling places as presented by the executive director.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Polling places are approved. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Agenda item number 2, the board may vote to hear the objections to nomination papers that have been filed in accordance with the requirements of Rhode Island General Laws 17-14-13 and 17-14-14.
Honorable members of the board, the first objection before you today was filed by Brian G. Coogan in the Senate 14, District 14 contest. The objection was filed against Valerie Jean Lawson. I'm going to turn it over to legal counsel Ray Marcascio.
Thank you. Thank you, Miguel, Madam Chair. If we could, would the parties and interested persons please come forward in the matter that was just identified by Mr. Nunez? And when you settle in, could you identify yourself? Yes, please.
I think the mic is already on. Great.
You just want to put it closer to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and the board members. My name is Brian Coogan of East Providence, Rhode Island.
And before you start, Mr. Coogan, I'll just give a little brief, I'll just frame things for the board members. This is a challenge, as Miguel said, to the nomination papers of Valerie Jean Lawson. The gist of the challenge brought by Mr. Coogan is that one of the collectors of signatories for the nomination papers was not actually present when the signatures were indeed gathered. If that is the case, that would bring into question 17-14-10 and the requirements that you be present when they are gathered. So let me just ask you first, Mr. Coogan, were you a candidate for this office?
I am.
All right. And we should swear in the witness then.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay. Do you, can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And do you have any witnesses on your behalf with respect to the allegations you've brought?
Well, yes, I don't have a witness, but I'd like to submit to the board a sworn affidavit saying that the young lady was, who signed the papers where Bruce Roger was not present, and he swore on oath that he was present, and she has her phone number in here as well.
Okay. So the first thing we'll do is we'll mark as Exhibit 1 of this proceeding the complaint. And I'll take that, actually. We'll first mark as Exhibit 1 the complaint and related papers submitted by Mr. Coogan. That will be Exhibit 1 as full. And then with respect to the second exhibit, which Mr. Coogan has just submitted, that will be marked for identification first. That is Exhibit 2. And that's for ID only at this point, and that is a statement sworn to by Ashley L. Pereira regarding the signature collection used. I should advise the board that there are two ways to present paper testimony. You might remember this came up actually with the No Labels Party, that my advice was that despite the certain credibility of the person submitting those papers, that if we're having an evidentiary hearing, that the documents need to be authenticated and there should be an opportunity to challenge them too. So we have an affidavit, but we have nobody here that you can ask questions of. We're not saying that the statement here is not true or true, but in any judicial proceeding, it is important that the person who is providing testimony be available for examination and cross-examination by the parties as well as by the trier of fact. With that as a preface, my recommendation is that unfortunately, if you have this person available, they're not here though, right? Ms. Pereira?
Right, she works for the city of Providence. She cannot get the time off because if the hearing was held in the evening where she could attend no problem. But because she has a couple of children at home, and she has to work, so it's hard for her to take the day out and lose a day's pay. But she did have that notarized
Yep.
by a state around notary.
Yep.
I'd ask, can you read it into the record, like exactly what she said?
Only, I'll read it as again, for identification purposes. So what I'll do is I'll just show it to the board members.
And is this recorded?
It is.
Can somebody read it so people that are watching can understand what it says?
If I were to do that, that would basically be allowing unchallenged testimony to come in on your behalf without an opportunity to ask questions of that person. That would be something that normally we would not allow.
Okay. Well, I take this process very seriously. I've run for office before, and I've been scrutinized for my signatures, and people have handed in letters where it was read into the record. So I do have some history of how it's been done in the past 20 years ago. So it's nice for the people in the audience and at home at least to hear what's going on to get a bigger picture. I understand what you're saying, but she put her ID on there. She notarized it. She gave a sworn statement on a piece of paper that was notarized.
Well, ultimately, it's up to the board, but
I'd ask the board then if they would.
But I would advise the board that we would not ordinarily take that kind of testimony because of the one-sided aspect of it. It doesn't mean what she said is not true. It doesn't mean what you're saying is not true. It's just that there's nobody here to challenge what is being presented on a paper. It's basically called hearsay testimony. It can't be authenticated given the way that you've presented it to the board.
Okay. I don't think it's a fair process, but okay.
And Ray, I just wanted to point out to the board, as you see on the screen, Ms. Lawson submitted 231 signatures. 183 of those signatures were approved, 48 were disqualified. And she would need to lose 84 signatures in order to be removed from the ballot. So these 5 would not change the outcome of her status on the ballot.
And I'd like to be clear to the board that I'm not here to challenge Ms. Lawson's signatures or any wrongdoing on Ms. Lawson. I'm here to bring light to the underhanded process that people use, that you people approve or disapprove, and it's a slap in the face to this board when people drop off a sheet of paper, go get me some signatures, and then they bring it back to a person, and then they notarize it saying that they got the signatures. And under Rhode Island state law, it's called perjury. But I think this process here is so important that you send a message to people that they cannot just drop off a signature paper willy-nilly and then bring it back to the board.
Yep.
So I'm not challenging the signatures. I'm challenging the process.
Yep.
And I would like I'm asking the board to, dismiss the signatures that Mr. Rogers did not get. He knows the process. He's a former mayor. He's got all sorts of arrest, check frauds, all sorts of fraud stuff. So here's another, it sends the wrong message if you let
I
the
understand.
signatures stay on. And
Yeah.
that's it.
I understand, sir.
It's nothing against Miss Lawson. She's a great person,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Understood.
And Mrs. Perez, she's a candidate herself, and she works for the city of Providence. She's not gonna do anything underhanded, but Bruce Roger was not present during her signature. And her phone number's on it if you'd like to call her.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We have general counsel for a reason, so I mean, I would look to the other board members. But go
And-
ahead, David.
And I'd like to add one more thing. So I myself spoke to Bruce Rogers. I know him personally, so I could witness that when I talked to him, because he works at a convenience store, he's a clerk as well. I said, Bruce, you didn't get these signatures. You were not there. Ashley Forever did not sign. So I took the wind right out of his sail. He goes, oh, so what are you gonna do with the signatures? I said, I'm gonna do the proper thing and just go through the proper channels. So he told me himself that he effed up is what he called it, and that he made a mistake. And what was my intention? I said, I'm just gonna go through the process. So he told me himself to my face. So I'm a witness to that, where he told me he did not collect the signatures.
Okay. David?
Well, I viewed that affidavit, and it's certainly hearsay. First of all, I have two problems with the affidavit. It's a mere statement, which you're going to submit for the truth of it, of the truth therein. It's basically an out-of-court statement. Second thing, the person did not sign under the pains and penalties of perjury or swear or indicating that the person signed in the presence of a notary and where that person swore that person to tell the truth. So there are two main problems with that piece of paper that you submitted. So I don't believe that it should be admitted into evidence as a full exhibit.
Commissioner, do you have something?
I guess I'm confused. We have someone that signed the nomination papers under the pain of perjury, I guess, because I think that's what it says, if you sign saying you witnessed those, but we're going to call into question this because it doesn't have that yet. I think I understand where we're coming from about needing to have somebody here. I think that's a reasonable ask. But I do think we need to do something about this, because I agree with Mr. Coogan in the sense that if we do nothing, then what's the purpose of the process? If people can just with impunity submit papers and nothing's going to happen, then they can take the chance. And in most cases, they're probably going to roll the dice and win, frankly. So something needs to happen. I'm not sure what that course would be, but perhaps our legal counsel could give us some suggestions as to a course of action.
Yep, and just so two comments in the order you raised them. First, with respect to the documentation, it's kind of formulaic for a court. It's when it's submitted, it can be submitted, for example, as background for a case that can be allowed in. But when it's submitted for truth of the matter asserted, and it's made by an out-of-court declarant, when both of those are in existence, it's asserted for the truth, and as an out-of-court declarant, it is a rule that the courts follow. So that on that first point. On the second point, you could receive a phone call. That's hearsay. You could receive anything and find that to be plausible and enough for you to then charge your staff to look into it further. You have every right to do that. Anything that appears suspicious that has been raised, whether it's with an affidavit, whether it's by a phone call, a letter, you have every right to investigate that if you think it's something that appears reasonable on its face, plausible. So you could do that. Usually when we initiate an investigation, it's done in an executive session, but that would be the normal course that you would follow.
Can I also ask a clarifying question? So we're saying all these signatures were accepted. So these individuals did in fact sign it themselves. We're just saying that the person who said that collected them is not, right?
So
Just wanted to make sure that.
I can't testify that all those people signed, because I was not there either.
No, yeah.
So if one's underhanded, you have to question the others if they're underhanded or not, if they were signed. So when Mr. Trevor told me that Bruce was not present, I said, was he in the bathroom? Was he outside the house? He was not there at all. Julie Silver asked me to sign for Val Lawson because she signed my nomination papers. But
Mhm.
Bruce was not there. But then when I got a copy of the signatures, I noticed Bruce signed. So when I called Mrs. Pereira, I said, you signed Valerie's papers, which is fine. That's my opponent. Because she also asked for me to support her and endorse her. And I said that I would. I said, what did Bruce Rogers have to say? Because, he collected your signature. He goes, Bruce didn't collect my signature. Bruce was not there, was not present at all. But then when I noticed on the oath that he collected the signature on the affidavit, he did not. So I'm not questioning if he was present or not with the other ones. My understanding, he was not present for them, but they didn't want to get dragged into the middle of it.
Got it.
I have so many questions, but I don't know if I can ask them. And first and foremost, just echoing what Commissioner Jack Foney said, is we do take this process very
Thank
seriously,
you so much.
which is why we're sort of wrestling with this, because I don't think we've had this exact
Yeah.
case come before us.
Mhm.
So Ray, I guess, Mr. Coogan is saying Mr. Rogers admitted he wasn't there, but he's not here, so we can't ask him. But we can't just drop it.
Yeah, so you can do your own investigation. That investigation can be separate and apart from the deadline that you're under with, this very rapid deadline for primaries. It can be conducted by your staff. If your staff believes that there is anything that is untoward, they have the ability to come back to you, and you can refer it out to the Attorney General, to the state police, any number of things that you can do. So my recommendation will be that the board consider having the staff investigate this themselves, report back to the board on what they find. If they think that this requires further attention, then you meet in executive session to discuss that and proceed with an investigation either with the police or with the AG, whatever you find.
Mhm.
And you may find that it doesn't, with all respect, obviously, to the person making the claim. But, and the reason why we do it in executive session is because the board does not want to become part of the political process. We don't want to use this as a way that influences an election. And even in this case, thankfully, the complainant is saying it's not against the candidate, it's against someone who is working therein. So that's helpful. But it is also advisable to do it in the ordinary way, which was confidentially.
Just two additional questions. If we ask the staff to do that, what would that consist of? Would that consist of bringing in the parties in question? Because it sounds like there's a couple different people that aren't here that have evidence to give, and then they would bring it back to us if they feel like it's something.
Right,
We'd
there
wanna
could
move
be,
forward.
it could be narrow in scope, it could start narrow and then expand. It could be one person being interviewed, possibly the person who submitted the letter, the sworn to letter, and then it could be expanded from there if you thought that it should be. When I say if you, normally you would have your staff kind of make that initial cut and then report back to you as to what they're observing.
And then secondly, on timing, I think our next meeting is August 6th. Given, and again, not questioning the merit of the claim, but given that, the 5 is significantly less than the 84, but would that affect the timing of the deadline that?
No, it shouldn't. I mean, that's a good observation, as well as what Miguel said, which we're talking about mathematical probabilities here. There's a mathematical certainty that the number of signatures in question cannot affect the outcome of the petition itself. So in this particular case, you have the advantage of time.
Excuse me, Madam Chairwoman.
Yes, sir.
It's near the end of the day. If I could get Mrs. Pereira to come in by the time you're done with these next couple of cases, and at the end, she could testify saying that she signed with Bruce not. If she came here physically, because she's probably getting out of work any minute. If she could just hustle over here, and then you could clear it all up. You don't have to put on another agenda and waste, you guys, you got a lot of things going on. You don't have to waste. And
fine.
again, I'm not challenging Mr. Valerie Lawson's signature.
Understood.
Even if I couldn't understand one of her signatures and they approved it and she was short one, let it go. Competition's good, but we have to respect the law and we have to respect the process, because some people just, oh, I'll sign for my wife, I sign for my kid, because there's signatures on a lot of papers that you could tell someone signed for the whole family.
Yeah.
We have to-
Agreed.
I have to respect the process, so that's all I'm asking for, is
Yeah.
the process be respected, that you lay the rules and
Thank
the
you.
groundwork for.
Thank you, sir. Agreed. Commissioner Schultz, did you
Well, I'll
have
say the
something?
process is, as I understand it, you qualify for the ballot
Yes,
and your opponent qualifies for the
Yes.
ballot. And if we knock out all five, she still qualifies for the ballot. So only issue here is whether the signature gatherer who signed violated the statute. And that's independent of the race. Okay? Yeah, so it's independent of that race. And therefore, I think what we take the legal counsel's suggestion is we have the staff contact, there's 6 individuals here, the 5 who signed, plus the signature gatherer, the 6 people. Our staff can speak to as many of these individuals as they can and come and report back to us. But whatever that report is, it's going to be independent of the race. Both qualify. So
Yes.
whether bringing in this individual to testify is not going to affect your placement on the ballot,
and I'm
either
not-
yours or your opponent's.
Right.
Okay?
And
So you brought this to our attention. Person violated, according to your position, a statutory requirement, and we're going to let the staff, I think the staff should look into that and come back with a report to us, and we can meet in an executive session and decide where we're going to go with that.
Right, and the evidence that I gave so far, I mean, the board could vote today to disqualify those 5 signatures, right?
But I think what you say with the other 4, though, the only person that's come forward as a formal witness saying that Bruce Rogers did not collect it was Ashley, correct?
Right.
The other 4 have not been contacted. So I mean, I think you make a good point. I think it's worth the due diligence at this point. If one's in question, to your point, we might want to look into the other 4, and there could be nothing there.
And again, just for the audience and the people that are paying attention, because we need to send a message that you cannot just
Agreed.
throw signatures around for this process. So if I dropped off a paper, Madam Chair, at your house, say, hey, get me as many signatures as you can, and I don't witness them, I pick it up at your house later, and I swear on the oath that I did, how would you feel? How would the board feel
Yeah,
about that?
believe me, we are in total agreement with you. We've had a lot of experience with signatures and have worked really hard to make sure the process is adhered to. So loud and clear. And I think, does someone wish to make a motion? Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Coogan?
Yeah, just one quick thing, it's just a side note that I'm not nitpicking. I'm not trying to get Mrs. Lawson knocked off the ballot or any other candidates. I just respect the process so much, and I respect the board so much in the state of Rhode Island and the perjury laws that you cannot just go around. It's fraud. It's signature fraud. It's a perjury. So I'm actually I'm supposed to be away for a week in Massachusetts camping, and I actually had to leave today to come here because I respect the process. So I had to say to myself, what's more important, vacation or letting people know that you just can't do
Yeah.
things illegally with the state of Rhode Island with signatures?
Thank you. We appreciate your respect of the process.
Madam Chair, I'd say that, our board has always held people accountable to their acts and their deeds. So if the signature gatherer, violated the statute, our staff's going to look into it and come back with a report. So, Madam Chair, with that, I make a motion that we refer this matter to the executive director and the staff to investigate this and present a report to us at the next meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Schultz. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion from the board?
I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you for taking time to do this.
And you're welcome. And I asked that the board if they could maybe even vote to send it to the state police and the attorney general's office.
I think we're
I
going to
think
take this
based on-
step
Mhm.
first today, and then
Okay.
we'll see what comes back
Thank you.
for the next, but thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There's no one else here. The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Coogan.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Members of the board, the second objection before you today was filed by Mia A. Ackerman in the Representative District 45 contest. The objection was filed against candidate Kenneth Atkinson. As you can see on the screen, this position in General Assembly requires 50 signatures. Mr. Atkinson submitted 70. 51 signatures were approved by the local boards. 19 were disqualified. Mia Ackerman is challenging 13 signatures on the nomination papers before you today, and 2 disqualified signatures will remove Mr. Atkinson from the ballot.
And Ray, are you going to start, or I believe we have someone here representing Representative Ackerman? Okay.
So why don't you come on up? And is anybody else here in this matter?
Myself, Atkinson.
Yes, well then why don't you please come up as well? No other parties.
Good afternoon.
And could each of you identify yourself, just for the record? I know that you just did briefly.
I'm Kenneth Atkinson, candidate for seat 45, Cumberland, Lincoln.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Attorney David Hayes. I represent Mia Ackerman, representative of District 45.
Thank you.
And have you, you may not have at this point, but have you filed an entry of appearance for your,
I have,
I'll take it if you have.
but I possibly have not. Okay, thanks very much.
And Ray, should we swear them in as well?
We should swear in Mr. Atkinson. I don't believe that you're going to be presenting any testimony, Mr. Hayes? Okay. So we should swear you in, sir.
Okay, can you raise your right hand, Mr. Atkinson? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And I believe the board is aware of the nature of the challenges. They appear, when I review the papers to, and the parties can correct me if I'm wrong, but both signature discrepancies in one aspect, and then the other aspect is that the names of the individuals, so not the signatures, but that the names themselves do not appear as written in the voter lists. So if you look at the fields that are on the nomination papers, the first field is to put in your name, then your address, and then your signature. The claim, and correct me when I'm done if you want to add or modify what I say, is that several of the names were written, for example, with a first name Bill as opposed to what might be in the voter record as William, or Jeff as opposed to what might be in the voter record as Jeffrey. And the gist of the challenge is that if you look at the governing statute, which is 1714-8 or 11, I cannot remember which one,
Subsection 8, you are correct.
that under 1714-8, that the law allows the board to consider slight modifications to the signature so long as you can still reasonably identify the signature as being that of the voter. That it doesn't allow for the same leeway with respect to the names, that the names must, quote, appear as they are presented in the voter record. So that's the gist of it. And Mr. Hayes can present anything he wishes. We've dealt with issues that are similar to this in the past. We've never rejected a signature based upon the name not appearing exactly as it does on the petition forms, but that is the focus of your challenge. So with that in mind, if you want to first correct me if I mis-summarized your statement and then go from there.
Absolutely. Just to take it from the top.
Do you mind putting the microphone a little closer?
Absolutely.
Sorry, thank you. It's not you, it's the microphone.
Here we go.
It's on you.
This can move. Is this better?
Yeah.
Perfect. All righty. So for the position of state representative, a candidate must have 50 ballot signatures. And the law is pretty clear on which signatures. The law is clear on the standard by which these signatures should be accepted or not. And we've identified 13 signatures that do not comply with the law. The printed name not matching the name on the voter list it's concerning. And there's no, where do we draw the line here as to when the name just completely doesn't match the voter list? Instead of Beatrice or William Stapello, we have John Smith instead, and although the signature matches. So my position is that this law regarding the signature, allowing for variations in that and only that, it assumes that we're able to identify the voter based on the printed name, the printed legal name, and if you kind of consider other, when you're renewing your driver's license, when you're buying a house, all of these different transactions, these legal transactions that we're entering into, we have to make sure our printed name is correct and we are who the person we're saying we are. So in reviewing all the relevant documents that we've received from the towns of Lincoln and Cumberland, matching that up against the voter registration list, we've identified 13 signatures that do not comply with the law, and either the printed name doesn't match, and the signature doesn't reasonably appear to be the signature on the voter list. And then we have issues with where the signature doesn't appear. It doesn't reasonably appear as it does on the voter list. I've assembled to make it easier for the board. I prepared some handouts. I've categorized all 13. There are 5 where the printed name doesn't match, signature doesn't match. There are another 5 where the printed name doesn't match, the signature doesn't match. And then there are another 3 where the printed name doesn't match. And if I may, I can hand these out. And
So I will
read
just
them
add
together.
that the staff has prepared something similar for you on the screens here. So if compared to the copies of the nomination papers that you have in your hands, the nomination papers in
Yeah.
question. So if you want me to take you through the 13, I
Well,
can on the
let
screen
me-
here.
Yeah, I didn't know that that may be slightly different than this. What I'll do is I'm going to show this to Mr. Hayes and Mr. Atkinson, just to see if we have an agreement on this being marked.
Sure.
If you don't mind, I have one copy if you don't mind, maybe going through the pages together. It says Valerie Lawson on this one.
In the handouts that I had just referenced, I basically copied the line entry on the nomination form, compared that to what we were able to get from the Secretary of State on the voter list, and also put the signature there, so we can.
Okay. So you're okay with what the staff is? Oh, you're looking at it now.
Yes.
So, Miguel, can we see a copy of the statute in question? 1714-8. Okay.
I may be able to read it to you if I can just, because I would have a copy.
This is, I'm sorry, may I address you?
Yes,
This
sir.
is just, what this is about right now is basically a bill written, printed in the print column, and William as the signature. Is that what that's the argument right now?
Well, you have in front of you are the papers that relate to the actual challenge. So those are some of, if not all, of the nomination papers that were submitted to which there is a challenge being launched.
I think he's asking what is being challenged. So he's asking if the challenge is how the person wrote their printed
It
name.
is both.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is both. For some, it is a signature discrepancy, and Miguel can, maybe once we get those documents authenticated, then Miguel can break those down as to which ones are being
Mhm.
challenged for a signature
Mhm.
discrepancy
And which for the
versus
name.
the
Yeah.
name not
Mhm.
being just as it is in the voter record.
Does that clarify your question?
Yeah.
And I think first Johanna's getting us the law, and then, I mean, normally we would go through them one by one. So
For
we'll
a discrepancy,
hear
for a
that
signature discrepancy,
Yes.
yes. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Of course you do. Leave it to the IT guy.
Let me see if I got it right.
Okay, I got the gist of it.
These papers
that's
do
great, thanks.
include all the signatures at issue. However, for the purposes of my presentation today, I organized them in a different way, and I did prepare these handouts where everything is, we wouldn't have to flip through pages. We'd be able to see everything on just one page.
Okay. Okay, I'll see what Ray thinks. I don't know if you heard that, Ray.
So for the purposes of my presentation today, I did, I categorized all of these, and they're a little out of order, and I put them in. Absolutely. So for the purposes of today, my presentation today, I organized the signatures by category, and they're in a different order than the paperwork that we just reviewed, which I have no objection to because it does include all 13. However, I did prepare this handout with each signature listed in the order that I was going to discuss them today, and it has the entry with the voter registration and the signature right underneath, so we wouldn't have to flip around.
I mean, it's your case. I would be okay with allowing you to proceed in that fashion if the board is.
I will just say that the staff has become pretty efficient at presenting these to the board in the last several years. So if we do go out of order, it will not be in the order of what I'm prepared to present to the board according to the presentation here.
If you think that yours is as efficient, Miguel, maybe what we could do is go through that, and then if Mr. Hayes has anything he wants to add up, he could. But first things first, I'm going to take back the document that I gave you to look at and mark it full, Exhibit 1. No objection to that?
No objection, correct. Here you go.
Okay.
And then Miguel, you can
Okay.
proceed now.
So on the screen here, you have the form. You have a packet in front of you, which is in the order in which is being presented to you today, each form. It indicates the line number. Underneath that, you'll see the name of the voter. That's their name as it appears in the central voter registration system. And then below that, we have all of the signatures on file for that voter that is in that voter's record. So you may see one signature for some voters, or you may see multiple signatures if they've been a registered voter for many years. So this first individual, William Paul Stapello, the objection is claiming that the name does not match the voter registration. If you, on that first number in your packet, down on line 8, it appears that he signed either Will P. Stapello, or his printed name was Will P. Stapello or WM P. Stapello. And that is his signature over at the right compared to the signature that is up on the screen.
Anyone wish to?
So I take it the staff has no question about the signatures not matching. They do match, do they?
We do not have we have no issue with the signature, no.
No, okay.
Do you have anything you want to add to that, Mr. Hayes?
Although this signature appears to be, this signature, although both signatures appear to look like each other, entry for this particular voter does not list his correct first name as it appears on the voter list, and therefore should be declared invalid. And that's our position with respect to that voter.
Mr.
If it's the
Atkinson?
one I remember a couple of seconds ago looking at, it starts with, looks like WM at the beginning or
Yep.
something.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to object to him objecting the signature because maybe the person signing it was trying to squeeze his name into the box. I do the same thing. You're out there with clipboards, you're not really stable. I mean, I do that myself with papers and stuff. I'm Kenny, but my formal name is Kenneth. So,
Thank you.
And-
Commissioner Schultz?
Okay, and reading the statute says the signature shall be accepted as valid if it can be reasonably ascertained to be the signature of the voter.
Right, so
So
what,
the statute basically says we accept that signature.
it's interesting. I agree, Mr. Schultz. What the challenge is that you don't reach the signature
Printed, right.
because the name is not exactly as it appeared in the voting record. That's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the argument being presented. And that, first of all, I mean, is that right, Mr. Hayes? I mean, you're saying it's not, one never reaches the signature analysis because one first needs to open that door and see see the names to see if they are an exact match, right? By that, I
With
mean, if,
respect to the exact
Yeah,
match, well,
yeah.
you know, so in the context of this particular voter, he doesn't spell out his first name, and it's WM period P. Who
Right.
is that? How do we identify this person just by the voter list using his name? How do
But
we even look him up? And so, yes, the crux of that argument is that this name does not come close to matching what is on that voter list, although the signature does. We don't get there because this name doesn't match.
but you would agree that when trying to determine, what you just said was, how would you look them up? One normally looks at the last name first.
Okay.
And here, Stopello is the last name that appears both in the form field for name as well as in the signature, right?
It does.
And for each of these, the local canvassing authority was able to retrieve a signature specimen, both from either the CVRS or its own voting records, for the people that were listed by name, right?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so for each of these ones that you're challenging, the canvassing authority was actually able, with the information that was provided, find a signature specimen and the signature on the nomination paper for comparison.
I don't, it appears that way. It does, yes.
So there was sufficient information with the name itself, although not an exact match, to get to that, as I said, to open that door to look at the signature specimens. You would agree with that at least?
There was enough to find the signature specimen, correct?
And for you, would that also mean that if Mr. Stopello had, as part of his formal name, Roman numeral 3 or junior or some other suffix, that in the absence of that, you could not even look at the signature specimen because it's not an exact match?
Because, you know, this is about the integrity of our elections. There could be multiple different, there could be a second and a first that may have signed exactly like their dad or brother or somebody like that. And who is WM P. Strapello? You know, they could be a very good artist that can sign the signature exactly as it appears on the voter list. And I was able to get a copy of that signature in advance of today. And that signature looks exact match. And this is presumably years apart. So I would say that in light of all these questions regarding who actually printed their name on this form, I mean, when you're filling out a legal document and it asks you to print your name and you don't include your first, middle name, then, I mean, where do we draw the line here when it comes to the integrity of our elections?
Are you saying that you think that's a cut and paste?
I don't know what it is.
But if you look at the W and the I for both, WI and then underneath the WI, there is a slight
It's-
additional space on the first specimen versus the second, right?
Again, I am not focusing on the similarities between those two signatures on the screen. This particular voter did not print their name on this form correctly, and it doesn't identify this particular voter at all.
Okay, I think we have something.
Yeah, I would just, I think to expect that, first of all, it's a small box. I have a long name. I've signed these before. It's tough to get your full name. I know what my name looks like on my original voter registration from a very long time ago because I'm involved in this process. Most people do not. So I think to expect that they're going to always match precisely is putting an incredible burden on the voter, and not even bringing in the signature collector. So with all due respect, I think when someone puts WM, yeah, that's William. All of these appear to me, maybe with the exception of number 7, to be just people shortening their name because that's what they do. And they probably don't remember what their name is on the voter list. And as for number 7, I would just say, I know we're not considering that one now. I think if you look at it doesn't just say Hender. There's more after, there's a line after that. I think it's just someone writing quickly. So to me, I would like to see the signatures because the signatures, I don't think any of the names of the individuals that do not appear to match, I don't think that any of that, in my opinion, so far is legitimate. So.
Thank you. And can I ask another question too? Because I know we have 17-14-8. There's nothing, is there anything in law that talks about the printed piece of the nomination papers? Because I know even here, it's still, again, the voter's signature by substitution of initials for the first or middle names or both shall not itself be grounds for invalidation of the signature. So there's even leeway with the signature, but the printed name, I don't know, I'm asking if there is statute
Well,
to that effect, because there's
right,
nothing in
right.
here, so.
Well, this statute does include reference to the name. So I'm looking,
Just sign their name.
mhm.
But because I think what I'm having also trouble with is I think to Commissioner Jacoby's point, we've seen it before where you will see the printed name, maybe, I'm writing everybody's name and saying like, this is your name, is this your address, can you sign it here? That happens when, like, I've seen that plenty of times. This is the first time I think I'm hearing that. Sometimes it's a short name. Somebody else is writing their names. We see that all the time. We see Liz. We see it, and so I'm a little concerned that would be. I also have a very long name, but I guess not as long as all of you. It just, yeah.
May I? If within the first printed box, it's printed out Jack Smith, and then that's in the signature, that I would have a problem with. But reasonable signatures by identification by the voter is what I was told this morning. Looking at the WM and then looking at that, what means William. So, I mean, common sense has to fall into place a little bit. So.
I
think-
will point out that staff from the Cumberland Board of Canvassers is here if you have any questions for them on their acceptance of the signature.
And the only other thing I can say, Madam Chair, is that I do know that up to the early 1970s, when the Supreme Court reviewed the whole question of names, signatures, they took a strict construction, a strict view towards the requirements. And that proceeded for a few years until the General Assembly. In fact, the end of the case I'm thinking of said, while this may be a strict interpretation with severe consequences at times, as far as making sure that the names and the signatures are identical, including junior where junior is, and the middle initial if that's what you use. The decision as to whether or not that should be the requirement rests with the General Assembly and not with us. And sure enough, within a year or two of that, the General Assembly met and they modified it to add this language that allows for the reasonable view of it, that you don't reject a signature simply because it's not exact. So the General Assembly, I think, made its effort to make clear that its intent was allow it in if you can determine that it is correct. If you can't, that's a different story. And it seems to me that so long as you can open up the door and get to where Mr. Stapello's signatures are, you should do so. If you can't open that door because you really can't figure out who it is it his registration or is it that person's? For example, if they're John P. Smiths and you have 2 or 3, I get that. That's a very different question. That is not what's being presented here. It's more, do you ever allow it? And the answer from our General Assembly is that you would normally do so if you can make sure that you can ascertain that is the person.
One quick comment. If they're arguing this here over the signature and the WH and whatever else, let's say you side with them on this. That, to me, where does that leave mail-in ballots? You got
No,
people
we're-
signing,
right.
you get, well, I don't want to open up that door, but that opens up that
We're
whole
not
can of
siding with
worms.
anyone. Yeah, yes, I understand. Did you have something else? And then I'm going to move to you to how we should proceed. Right? Go ahead.
I do have some more. So on the issue of the signature matching and the subsequent amendments to this law by the legislature, this was only with respect to the signature. And I mean, if you think about signatures, people scribble those signatures, and this law assumes that there's a valid printed name to compare that signature to find, to determine, the law assumes that the printed name will illuminate whether or not somebody put their first initial and middle initial in their signature and signed just their last name. Signatures are in cursive, and they are difficult to make out. And having a relaxed standard for the signature makes a lot of sense. However, when we're trying to figure out who signed this, whether it's William or Walter or whoever else, we need a printed name to be able to, as a benchmark, to determine whether this signature even complies. And
Thank you.
and the candidate had mentioned something earlier with respect to and correct me if I'm wrong, if there was a short name for the printed name and the person also signed the short name in their signature, then he would agree and he would concede that that would be invalid and should get kicked out. And there are a number of these. There's more than one. And if you allow me to just review this, I can identify those for you.
It will be the first 4 that are, first 4 slides are regarding the name and not matching the central voter registration system. So this is the first of 4. that involve the name.
Okay, so should,
One is William Easterbrooks. William Easterbrooks prints his name, Bill Easterbrooks, and the signature looks nothing like his signature on the voter list, and it is signed Bill Easterbrooks. And the statute does not allow a short name or a nickname for the first name of the signature. But just overall, the signature does not reasonably approximate the signature in this voter list. And the candidate appears to concede that this is an invalid signature and should be excluded.
this is the only one, this is the only,
I will note on this one that the staff believes that the voter signed their name in the first box and printed their name in the voter signature box. So on the nomination paper in front of you, line 1, says it's a signature of Bill Easterbrooks. Appears to be a signature in the first column.
it's hard, you can't compare the first name of the signature because one, what we have is Bill, and that's William.
I sign my signature on legal forms as Ken Atkinson, and it's accepted to on top of Kenneth Atkinson. I've never had an issue with shortening my name.
Commissioner?
And again, I understand that part, but even just looking at it, looking at the first box or even the second box, looking at just the last name. So if I forget completely the first name, the last name does not look like that at all to me.
I would have to agree.
And the question is whether this is a reasonable, this reasonably appears to be the signature of the voter that it purports to be. In addition to William or Bill Easterbrooks, there's Beatrice Whitman as well.
Hold on,
Printed,
we have to
So
check.
could we, just one sec, sorry.
sorry.
At this point, I mean, this is very tight, as there's 13 in question.
Mhm.
Ray, should we be going back, starting and doing the process that we've done before, which is
Go in order.
literally right now saying, do we accept or reject?
I think you should. You should take a vote on each.
Okay,
Can we go back to the
so do you
first
want to
one?
start back? Let's start with William.
Which William?
Oh, sorry, the
Stapello.
first William Stapello.
I'll make a motion to accept William Sabello's signature.
Second.
Motion and second to accept the signature. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move on to the next William.
Should be William Easterbrooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to move it.
There we go.
I'll make a motion to reject the signature.
We have a motion to reject. Do we have a second?
I'd like to ask a legal counsel question.
Of course.
Ray, it appears that the voter signed his name in block 1 and not block 3. So they switched it around.
I did have somebody that did do that, and I
I know,
Told
but I
them
want
to-
to, excuse me, I want to ask legal counsel, what is the significance of that?
There's very little so long as you have one that has the full name and the other that has the signature, any error made as far as filling it out, I think would be secondary at best.
So if we can determine the person is the person who signed, we accept that signature.
Right, if you can match the signatures, you would accept it. If you can't match, then you would not.
So in this case, he signs Bill, but you have William there, but the question is whether or not the last name appears to be the same.
Mhm.
Just a
Yes,
qu-
Commissioner.
Question, do we know, to the executive director, do we know if this is the signature pad or a wet signature?
This appears to be an older signature. It was on the paper form.
Thank you.
And we don't have anything more updated, right?
And I would say the standard, just to reiterate, if I may,
Mhm.
it's whether the signature can reasonably be identified to be the signature of the voter it purports to be. And the statute allows for the substitution of first initials, but it does not allow for a completely different
Mhm.
signed first name or a
Yes.
nickname.
Thank you.
Do we know how old that signature is that was handwritten? Is we talking 10, 20 years?
I do not have that information, but I know based on looking at that form and the registrar information on the bottom, that form must be at least, I would say, 15 years old.
And
Yeah, I think.
I believe our signatures changed a little.
Yeah, but we have to go by
Okay.
the statute.
But the statute says that as long as it reasonably identified as the signature of the person it purports to be. Now, you brought out, then it says the variation is not grounds of itself, so that's not dependent upon the first sentence. So I think that sentence was reasonably identified stands alone. So the question is whether or not we can reasonably identify that signature of the person.
We have a motion
To reject.
on the floor to reject based on not being able to
Yeah,
identify
I don't
it,
believe
correct?
I don't believe the last name looks like what we have on what appears in the voter list.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead,
It's
Commissioner.
just, what, I think it's important. I mean,
Mhm.
my time on the Board of Canvassers, we reviewed a lot of signatures and people's signatures do change over time. So, and they're signing, coming out of supermarkets, you have to give a little leeway. So I will be voting no.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Opposed, and the ayes have it. The signature will be rejected. Okay, now we're moving on to Jeff Smells.
Same form number, same form, however, it's line 2. The next line, the voter's name is Jeffrey Howard Smalls. Or Smales. And on the screen are the 3 signatures that we have on file in that voter's record to compare to the copy of the nomination paper form you have in your hands.
The top one is the DMV one, right?
Yes,
wet
appears to
signature
be a
and the-
digital pad at the top.
Which he signed as Jeff.
So that top signature, on the screen, the board is not looking at anything from the nomination paper, it's just what's here. right?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
To make a motion to accept the signature of Jeff Smalls or
I'll
Smales,
second.
sorry.
Motion to accept, motion seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Signature accepted. Steve Angel.
Form 2, line 3. The next line, voter's name is Stephen P. Angel. We have 2 signatures in his record.
The A looks very similar. He just did it really quick.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would move to accept based on the same sort of motions that, yeah, it looks the same.
Second.
Sorry. Motion and second to accept this signature. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The next signature in question is for Renee M. LaCroix. The objection is in this case is challenging that the signature does not match. And those are the two most recent signatures on file for the voter on the screen.
Do we have older signatures available as well?
That is the extent of what we have, I believe.
Do you have more signatures?
I have a previous signatures that were included on the voter list.
That would be in your packet, I believe.
Oh, it would be the same ones?
Um,
Okay.
And I would also add with respect to this entry, this one's included with 3 other entries for individuals residing at the same address. It's all listed in consecutive order with one another. And
Okay.
if you compare the signatures, it's not even close.
I disagree with that. I think the A and the E in the first name
Those aren't.
are close, and the L's in the last name at the beginning.
Oh, no, so you're
It's
seeing
resembling.
her signatures. You're not seeing how it's signed on the paper.
Oh, okay.
He can show you how it was signed on the paper.
So, Mr. Hayes, what you're showing the candidate right now, can you just lift up, am I looking at the same, if you just if you just raise it up. Okay. So what is, I see. Okay. All right, thank you. You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that we have folks here from
Oh,
who reviewed the papers from the local
Mhm.
board.
The Cumberland,
It would be possible to ask them why they accepted this one, because
are they here?
Yeah, at this point.
this could be a written fast, but I'm interested to leverage their expertise in this particular one.
Is that okay, Ray?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can gather any evidence you want.
There's
They are
hands being
here.
raised. You can
Come on
to the front.
up.
And we should swear her in?
Yes,
Hi.
Hi.
Do you swear to tell, first state your name.
Carrie Rossi.
Okay, Karen. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And your title is what?
Board
Come-
Campus Clerk.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Randy?
So my question, Ms. Rossi, was what were your thoughts in accepting this particular signature?
I see the R in that. And we're taught, we're going to accept if we can see, similarities, and that was the similarity that I saw.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I'm sorry, one more question.
Oh, sure.
If something like this comes up, do you, or if it's ever on the fence, do you consult someone else in
Oh,
the office
absolutely.
generally?
Yep, we have
Okay,
3 people in proximity to me.
Yeah.
I would ask the 2 of them, and then I ask the town clerk as well.
do you recall if in this particular
I
one? you
don't
did?
recall.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Hayes, of the witness?
I do not.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a motion to accept the signature for Renee LaCroix.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the signature from Renee LaCroix. Any further discussion on the part of the board? Sorry. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm going to go no on this one. You're going to go no as well. Okay. Now what?
Hold on, so we have a tie here,
Mhm.
and the petition is to disturb the lower decision, so then the lower decision would stand. Which is to accept, you accepted this,
I did.
so in the absence of it being 3-1, then it is accepted.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on Mr. Hayes? We don't have sufficient votes to disrupt the lower decision, and so you're the moving party. You need to persuade a majority of the board to change that decision. They have not.
Okay. This particular signature under the statute, I would just reiterate, it cannot reasonably be identified with those signatures at all. The statute doesn't talk about a letter from the name matching, and that's sufficient to accept the entire signature. But I would just put that out there for the board on this one.
Anything? No? Good? Okay. Okay, we're going to move to the next.
The next voter is Stacy E. Lynette on Form 3, Line 6.
I would add that with respect to this one, it's also, there's a Robert Lynette residing at the same address listed directly underneath the entry for Stacy Lynette.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I would just add that the Lincoln nomination paper also lists a Robert Lynette as residing at the same address directly underneath this entry.
Richard.
Richard?
So you're saying it's person signed on both lines? One person signed both lines?
I am just alerting the members of the committee to that. I don't know one way or the other.
Well, I don't see the signature
I
match.
can't see it.
Yeah. So I move to reject.
I second.
Moved and seconded to reject. Any discussion on the part of the board?
I wish we had kept Ms. Rossi
know.
up here
Do you
in
mind
terms of
if you say-
interested in just her feedback on this one.
Do you
as well.
want
Do you mind coming?
I have a feeling she's going to tell us the yes.
Oh.
to? Okay.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize. Oh,
Oh, there's two cities, yep.
Hello,
Could you just state your name and then I have to swear you in?
Lillian Silva.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Silva, it's the same question I had for Ms. Rossi. What was it that, because if you say few questions, why did you accept this one? Do you recall if you checked with others? Or do you have that process within your office?
So I can say that I checked this specific one because I recognize my handwriting on the right. I accepted it because of the S, and people do sign very quickly. We are a small staff, but we took it upon ourselves to double check every signature. So everything from Lincoln was checked twice.
Thank you. Okay. We do have a motion and a second to reject. Anything else from the board? No. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
You're a no. Okay. The ayes have it in this case.
I just wanted to point out to the board that Mr. Atkinson needed 50 signatures in order to qualify for the ballot, and it appears you've rejected 2 signatures at this point, up until this point. So that would mean he does not qualify for the ballot as of this moment. Do we need to
Yeah.
continue going down?
You should, mostly in the event that a court were to review this and not agree with one or more of your
Yeah.
votes, you'd want to have a tally of everything you do.
The next signature voter in question is John McLaughlin Jr. on Form 3, Line 11. And again, this is for signature mismatch is the objection.
You can tell that the signature in the top is crossed into it.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I could.
And to the clerk, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Lillian.
Lillian, thank you. Can you explain to us why you accepted this?
Again, it's the J.
The J, yeah, that's what I
This
thought,
one was very difficult to read, but
Yeah.
we gave the benefit of the doubt with the J.
because of the J, yeah. I'll make a motion to accept this one.
Motion, do we have a second? You still looking?
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept. Any further discussion on the part of the board? You still looking, Dave? You still
No, we can
looking?
vote.
You okay? All right. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And that was accepted.
Yes.
The next signature is on Form 3, line 15. The voter's name is Norman J. Tessier Jr. And again, this is for signature mismatch.
That was very similar to,
That's the
it's
end.
hard to fake that.
Mhm.
I would just point out the beginning of the last name. If you compare on the nomination paper, there's a swoop, there's a loop. And if you compare that to the signature on the voter list, that's missing.
The last loop is there. The, like, I don't know what
Yeah.
It's
their
very
last name is.
difficult to piece this together.
I think I'm,
I
think
don't
it's
see a
hard to
match
fake
here.
that. You don't?
No.
May I address the board for a second?
Can you let's just get through this last one and then,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So Miguel, do we have any other exemplars of the signature?
I don't believe so, but they would be in the packet here. I'm looking. It does not appear that we have any other signatures on file.
Okay.
I would move to accept just based on I can see the N on paper versus that's on digital.
I'll second that.
Move to accept and seconded. Any further discussion?
And before you vote, Mr. Atkinson, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yes,
just for
I
the
do,
record?
legal counsel. At this point, I accept the rejections. I'm not going to bring anything to court or anything. I do accept the decisions that I just that I'm below 50 at this point. So I don't know if we can stop at this point or whatever, but I accept the judgment of where it's at right now. I'm not going to challenge anymore at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Is that, what do we do?
If there's no way that this would be reviewed by another court and they wouldn't need any other facts, then of course you could. My only concern is that he's not with counsel. He has every right when he leaves here to reconsider that. That's his right. How many more do we have to do?
Not that many.
I would
Yeah.
advise the board that despite what you've said, Mr. Atkinson, it just seems that in the, in the event that you change your mind tonight, I'd like the record to be complete.
Okay. I was just trying to make everybody's life a little bit easier.
I know, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And let me just say, Mr. Atkinson, thank you. Thank you for wanting to take up the responsibility to run for office and going through the process of gathering these signatures. I mean, it shows, that you have a great respect for democracy, and we deeply appreciate that. So
Signatures is
Thank you.
huge with me, so,
Thank you very much.
okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to accept this, I forget where we are.
Norman?
Norman
Number
Tessier.
15.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No.
3 ayes, 1 opposed. The ayes have it.
The next signature in question is Form 3, line 19. Licinio Mora. Again, the objection is due to the signature.
I'll make a motion to accept the signature.
Motion to accept. Do I have a second?
I'll second. The L is close. Yeah, just the.
Did you want to add something?
Thank you,
course.
Madam Chair. The L doesn't look anything like the L on the nomination paper. The loop, So the bottom of the L loops downwards. This one, the one on the nomination paper doesn't. The loop on the top of the L is much larger. It goes up at an angle towards 10, 11 o'clock. And this one is curved in the same direction as the L.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board?
I would just add that it's actually the eight, but it looks like, I'm sorry, so it's an M, but it looks like an H to me on both, which is what makes me think this is the same signature.
Mhm.
Well, I sort of have a different view. I don't think it looks the same. Because the second, instead of a T, it looks like an H. So I think the signature should be rejected, but we already have a motion on the floor.
Yep,
Okay.
motion and seconded to accept. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. One opposed, the ayes have it. I think we're on Ben.
The
Whitman?
next signature is for
Oh,
Jacqueline
sorry.
Elaine Brion on Form 3, Line 1.
For this one, I
The
would also,
third,
Oh, it's on the
excuse me,
next
the
page.
second page of Form 3.
if I may, members of the committee, this is also one where the printed name does not match the name on the voter list, as well as the signature. It includes the signature of the short name, Jackie versus Jacqueline,
Thank you.
and by the candidate's own concession earlier in this testimony, he would agree that these should be rejected.
I did not say that.
No, he,
Indication, with the first name changed on the printed name, nickname, and then also signed in the same exact way, I believe, and I don't want to put words in the candidate's
don't-
mouth.
It's not my recollection, but
Yeah, it
I
wasn't
think we can
mine
move
either.
on from there. I understand that. You may
Yeah,
have
thank
understood
you.
that. I get that.
this board
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second,
moved and seconded to accept. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The next signature in question is for Robert A. Lake, again, a little lower down on that same form, on row 5. His name is Robert A. Lake on the voter list, and the objection is due to the signature not matching as well.
Why does it say J, Robert A, oh, sorry. Are these two different,
There are two different.
yeah,
Robert
yeah.
Lakes.
Robert A and
Oh,
Robert
you're not
J.
sure which one it is.
Oh, those are the next two.
The
Okay. They're
Bob
just
Lake,
alongside. Okay.
Correct.
Yep,
Bob Lake would be date of birth 4/10/61.
yep.
So the objection actually included both that the candidate filed, so that's why we have both here listed.
Got it.
Do you want to come on up?
Getting your steps in today.
Sorry.
And you're still under oath. Go ahead.
When we looked at these, we looked at it backwards. So we looked at the 1996 one as number 4 and the 1961 one as number 5. To me, that's how I compare the signatures.
Okay.
And just to explain the process when this happens, when we get a name like that, we look at both before we make a decision on one or the other. We do when there's no middle initial.
Okay, thank you.
Because they both have the same name. So it's, and if you look at the address, so somebody wrote the printed things for them. They just signed in the wrong place.
so excuse me, your record show these are two individuals?
Correct, it's father and son.
Okay.
I would assume, same address,
Mhm.
same first and last name.
I think the key term there would be, that's an assumption. It could be, but we don't know that. And we have laws to protect the integrity of our elections here. And this one, the name doesn't match the voter registration list. these entries are included right next to one another,
Mhm.
it's possible that if there was a father and son, that the son signed for the father without him knowing. I'm not saying that that happened, but in terms of our laws and trying to establish some sort of reasonable standard here, you know, I think that we need to address that.
Well, there is a similarity between the two signatures.
Are you saying that one person signed for
One
both?
person could sign for both.
Do you wish,
I can make that reasonable inference on that.
Alright,
do you wish to make a
I
motion?
move that the signatures be rejected.
I second that.
Moved and seconded that we reject these two signatures.
Under discussion,
Yes, sir.
I think we should just note that if you look at the screen, sorry, if you look at the screen, the signature there, and then line 4, it appears to me to be a pretty good match. So I think they, instead of printing their name, they signed there. I mean, they signed again for some reason. But
Mm,
if you look at the way they put their the printed name column, first column, and that one, they look pretty similar to me. I can understand on the second one, that is a bit of a stretch. I don't see how one person would have signed
Because
both.
Bob Lack is the 96.
The one
that
on
what
the-
you're saying?
The one on the right, yeah. If you look at the way the printed voter name, compare that to that to me is almost the exact match, especially,
The L.
yeah, look at the L, yeah. So just a consideration if we want to take those separately. 'Cause I can certainly understand the second one being rejected, but not the first one. I think I can agree on that.
Well, I don't see the match, but, so, we have a motion on the floor to reject it. Both signatures.
And you're saying,
Do you want to make a motion, a different motion?
Well, we already have one on the floor, so.
Oh, yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No,
One opposed. The ayes have it.
So that was a rejection for both signatures?
Correct.
The next entry in question is on the same page, second page of that form, page 2 of Form 3, line 12, Brittany A. Henderson. And that is the objection was for signature mismatch and incomplete last name.
Mr. Atkinson?
This is my upstairs neighbor, and I caught her running to her car. I remember exactly. She was dragging her suitcase. Let me get to my car. So I remember this one very easily, that this is Brittany's.
Thank you.
I move to accept the signature.
The candidate's a nice guy, but the law is the law. We can't just
He is under,
assume.
he is under
I am
oath.
under oath, and I can contest that she signed that in the driveway in front of parking space number 26 at 400 New River Road in Manville. I remember the incident completely. Please do not say that I'm not
Thank you,
telling
Mr.
the truth.
Atkinson. Thank you.
Well,
Do we have a
Okay.
motion to accept?
Well,
Did I-
yeah,
I made a
he
motion.
Oh,
knows
okay.
the
I'll second.
identity of the voter, so he's under oath, so we'll accept that testimony.
I will second that
Yeah.
motion.
Motion to accept and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The final entry in question here is for Form 5, Line 1, Beatrice J. Whitman. The objection is that the voter abbreviated their first name.
Motion to accept this signature.
She also-
Beatrice Whitman.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
So Miguel, what's the count now?
I have 10 accepted and 4 rejected.
Thank
We
you.
had 12 signatures. That were up for
Uh,
judgment.
There was
Was-
2 that were rejected.
At the same
The
time.
father and son were rejected, so that was the additional one.
Thank
Miguel,
you.
what's the-
Thank you
what's the
both.
final vote
Thank
tally?
you.
on the signatures altogether.
So the final signatures would be minus the 4, and he had
46.
51,
Oh,
so
so he has-
47.
47 signatures, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
members of
you.
the committee.
Thank you.
The next objection was filed by Joseph Powers in the Representative District 47 contest against the candidate Paul A. Roselli. And before I go into any of the specifics of this, I'd like to turn it over to Ray in terms of some questions surrounding the filing of this objection.
Let me just get to my notes. This is, so this one, Madam Chair, members of the board, this is a matter that was filed with a deficiency. The filing was electronically by email with the Secretary of State. And under 17.1.7.1, a filing, under that law, a filing is deemed to be invalid if it is not an original signature filed with the Secretary of State, namely meaning that there be a wet signature that is filed with the Secretary. That is under the general provisions of Title 17. It applies to all filings, and therefore the filing is facially deficient and, in my opinion, void. I don't know if there's anybody here that wishes to be heard on that, but that is my recommendation, that it be voided for lack of being filed properly. Is there somebody here on that? You're the candidate.
Yeah, we invite the candidate to come
Do you
up.
have a, you don't have a position, this is, you're the candidate being challenged, I assume?
I'm Paul Rosselli,
Okay.
candidate for District 47.
Yeah, there's
And who's the other gentleman here?
2 hands up.
Oh, okay.
Should bring them both up. No, you're good. Okay.
Bring you both up.
Mr. Powers, yes. No, someone else
Yeah.
had their hand up.
So let's see, just in case the board has any questions, you're both potential fact witnesses, can you both,
Can I be sworn in, please?
yes, why don't you go first?
And can you state your name again, please?
Paul Rosselli.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Can you state your name, please?
Joe Powers.
Joe, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And well, this is, Mr. Powers, you filed this, you filed it electronically, you heard what I said. Do you have anything you want to state on the record in opposition or to what I said?
Not in opposition, just for clarity's sake. I was actually contacted with this information
You
while I
just-
was away.
Lean that a little closer, sorry.
I was away, and when it was presented to me, I went through and looked at the evidence and the information. I filled out the form the way it needed to be, and then I had submitted it. I got an email back saying that it did need to be a wet signature. I said I couldn't do that by 4 o'clock, so I contacted the people who I was talking with. I told them, unfortunately, they can't accept it because it has to be a wet signature. If you can get David, Representative David Place, to actually do a wet signature and submit it himself, then that's the only way we're going to move forward. And I believe it was Saturday, I received an email and said, we submitted your paperwork. And I was kind of like, okay. I didn't know whether or not it was going to be accepted or not, but then I was told it was going to be submitted. So I showed up today too.
When you said we accepted yours, who's the we? that
I
emailed you?
was sent an email by Rob Rock saying that it was submitted
Mhm.
to the board. And I was told prior to that, it has to be a wet signature. So I just assumed at that point that it wasn't going to be accepted. So
Right. But submitted to the board doesn't,
Correct.
right, necessarily mean it's accepted.
I
But you're
see,
acknowledging.
okay.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
I would like the statute read again, or at least put into the record that it has to be a wet signature. Also, isn't there a specific deadline, an actual time period where the event has to be submitted?
It's 2 days.
And what are those 2 days?
What was the final deadline would be what, Miguel?
The deadline to submit the objection was Friday at 4
At
PM.
4 PM, and the electronic was done before that.
Thursday.
Correct.
And that is something that's beyond the control of the board as far as whether or not filings can be done in person, electronically. We're governed by all of the legislative mandates. And I'm sure I'm speaking for all of us. We appreciate the fact that you had to wait here to tell us that. But that is, that there is that deficiency with the filing.
I live down the street. I'm good.
Oh, okay.
And there's no remedial statute to rely on.
Yeah.
So we have to rely on the specific
right.
statute
That's
that
right.
calls it wet signature.
And I will tell you, I did accept that when I got the email back on Thursday. So I told them as well. So,
I see.
and I wasn't coming back I was at the convention. I wasn't coming back until 1:00 this morning.
I see. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yep. Understood.
So I guess we have to move that rejected because it's facially deficient.
Yeah.
Any
And you
second?
might want to wait for the chair.
No, she said there's a move
Oh,
on.
you just want to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can wait for her.
No, if, so long as it's, as long as you have the number of votes, you should be okay.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the motion, Mr. Schultz?
The motion is to reject the objection because it's facially deficient because it failed to present a wet signature in time.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so we vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you both.
Okay, we'll wait for the chair to come back to move on to item number 3. Okay, Jenny, we're on item number 3 now.
Item number 3, the board may discuss and vote to select individuals to serve on its compensation committee for board staff. And Commissioner Jack Boney, I believe this is your agenda item, if you want
It
to
is.
kick us off.
Just as a recollection, we voted to form this committee back in January. We just never staffed it. So I think unless we get 3, if we don't get 3 today, then maybe we would have to continue the next meeting like we did with the legislative committee. But I would be willing to serve on this committee.
Thank you.
I'll serve on it as well, so I get 2.
Have
do it 3.
present? It can't be somebody who's not here?
Well, I think we have to
Yeah.
wait till they're here, right?
We have to,
Or I
they
don't know.
have to,
That's actually
they
a good
have
question.
to agree or offer to serve in open meeting, right, Ray? So,
Not necessarily.
should-
If the chair knows that there
assign
is
them.
someone who's willing to serve on it, they could be appointed. If you didn't know, then you'd have to wait.
if I
You-
don't know for sure.
You don't know for sure, then I would not
Cannot
do it. Yeah,
speculate.
right.
Okay.
I'm
that's fair.
happy to, I'm happy to volunteer if that's the case.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we
All
have
set?
Sure.
3 volunteers, and that is sufficient to
Certainly.
form a committee, correct? And I
Yes.
believe, am I ex officio on?
We don't
every
have
board, 'cause I'm-
bylaws that
okay.
say, we don't have any bylaws, so no.
Okay.
But
You could always serve
You
still.
could
We
always
have
serve.
4 people on the
Thank
committee.
You can also volunteer yourself.
No, thank you, for no other reason than time. Okay. Do we need, so we need a vote on, to accept the members who have agreed
Yes.
to serve?
a
Okay.
motion to populate the committee with
Okay.
the members that were just
Volunteer.
volunteered.
So, Madam Chair, I move that the following members be appointed to the Compensation Subcommittee, consisting, those members being Randy Jackvoni, Marcella Betancourt, and David Scholes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Motion made. Do we have a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And I believe that is it for today. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
Moved. No one wants to adjourn?
No.
Oh. Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and we are adjourned at 3:46 PM. Thanks, everyone.
Ted, are you a notary?